Welcome back to On the Light. I'm your host, Susan Johnson. Today, it is my great honor to speak with Gloria Goldberg, a lifetime student and teacher of the Iyengar method, whose decades of dedicated study and service have placed her in direct contact with Guruji, Geetaji, and the Iyengar family for many, many years. Gloria's journey began in the early 1970s when she was first drawn to yoga as a way to manage her asthma. What began as a simple personal practice soon became a lifelong path, one that led to her study in Pune, assist in organizing conventions, help develop teacher education programs, and serve the Iyengar community with extraordinary devotion. In this conversation, Gloria shares intimate memories of her time with Guruji and Geetaji, reflections on practice as an experiential and transformative process, and the profound responsibility of preserving and transmitting this work to future generations. Please enjoy this episode of On the Light. Thank you so much for meeting with me today to do this episode for On the Light.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Let's start. Can you tell us how you came to Iyengar Yoga?
I came to Iyengar Yoga after I moved to California in 1973. I moved to California, but it was a few years later that I was almost dragged to an Iyengar Yoga class at 6:30 in the morning at the Iyengar Yoga Center in Santa Monica, which at that time, the main teacher there was Mary Dunn. There were two other teachers there also, Jenny Snick Levins, and who doesn't teach with us anymore, and Ariane Hudson. And after that class, I just kept going to the 6:30 in the morning class.
Mm-hmm.
But I had been doing yoga from a book called Hittleman's 28-Day Yoga Exercise Plan. Mm-hmm. I started that while I was still living in Chicago. I wanted a form of, something to help with my asthma because I'm asthmatic and have been since a child. And I worked nights, so I don't get home till like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and then you're up, and so what to do? So do yoga. I started on that book, and it's interesting when I look back about abhyasa and vairagya, that the repetition of those 28 days helped me to understand that repetition, when you go back to the first day after the 28th day, and you can recollect how that first day of practice has changed due to the 28 days or the 27 days that followed. And then when I came into Iyengar Yoga, and I was kind of all ready, basically prepared, because he taught the basics, standing poses and seated poses and forward bends in his book. So that's how I came into Iyengar Yoga. And then in 78 or 79, I left California and went to Vermont, went back to graduate school. And in the dorm, on my bed, was Light on Yoga. So there was a clue.
Yes.
I don't know I still have that book, but I don't know where it came from.
Interesting.
It was just on the bed. So that was kind of an auspicious thing to have happen. And then I returned to California in 1986, came back to classes in San Diego. And then my son was born and we moved to LA. And so I was encouraged to connect with Bonnie Anthony in Pasadena and the LA Institute at that time in LA. So I got involved there because I guess partly because of my background in organizational development, the association there and the institute needed help. So Bonnie engaged me to help.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been helping, I guess.
And you've been helping ever since.
So I hope I have been helping ever since. And then I moved back to San Diego in 93, but I taught at the Iyengar Yoga Institute in LA from late 86 until I left. In between all that, between 86 and 93, we had the convention in 1990 in San Diego, and it was a combined effort of the students and teachers in San Diego and in LA, because at that time there was one association for all of Southern California from Orange County south to the border, Mexican border. Guruji came at that time, and how do I say this? I guess there was strife in the community. So the main effort of that convention was community building. And so in talking with Guruji about it, and my first visit to Pune was in 1988, and Bonnie and I went, and a whole group. At that time, they were holding intensives in India for different groups from different parts of the world or different parts of the United States or the United States, and people applied to go. I was encouraged to go. I had no money to go. So the association paid my way fully, and I repaid them by teaching beginners classes until all the money was repaid. So I didn't get, whatever money came in for those classes went towards repaying that trip to the association, which was very kind and generous. And it was my first introduction to BKS Iyengar. And because we were doing the convention, we talked a lot with Bonnie and Ariane. And so I got to know him, or really he got to know me better because he didn't know me at all. And Geetaji, that was one of the first intensives that she was teaching in Pune on her own. It was all very, very auspicious.
Yes.
For me.
Of course. So what do you remember about those initial moments with Guruji?
Well, I can't remember if I was in awe, probably, scared, maybe, I don't know. But, being there with my mentor at the time, Bonnie, and others made it easier. And we were discussing, organizing a convention. So there was a very specific topic and all. And Guruji's smile and his eyebrows, and it was all very, very lovely. And he would be in the room when Geeta was teaching also. So that was interesting. Their relationship was, you could observe their relationship and how they worked together. Yeah, and how she was able to convey his teachings to everybody in the room, of course, because her grasp of the English language was better than his at the time. Of course, over time, his also improved, and Gita's teaching was wonderful. I felt totally taken care of when I was there, even though I was one of many. You would leave the room thinking that all the teaching was just for you. And everybody felt that way.
Yeah.
Because, when we arrived, we filled out forms, we let them know what problems we had, if any, at the time or previous. So, they knew I was asthmatic. And she was, as I've written in, a couple times or in introductions, she really took care of us like a mother, a kind, compassionate, firm mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Geeta and I are the same age.
Yes.
And I've traveled with her.
Yes.
I accompanied her along with Stephanie Quirk. The two of us went with her on her European tour. And when she was invited to do that, she hadn't really traveled before. I was in India. I think she went in 2000. So many things happened between Yoga 90 and 2000 that and I had been in the library with Guruji, and I said, oh, Geetaji said she's going on this tour with Europe and she hadn't really traveled before. I think someone should go with her. So Guruji said, you go with her. So I went with her. So that was amazing also.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah. And in between all that time was when I kind of had this realization that either some of the talks or some of the special classes or really needed to be recorded. And some of them really needed to be, video recorded.
Yes.
And so at the time, the man who was in charge of the store at the time was also a amateur video person. He had this big equipment. And so it was interesting helping him to understand what it is we wanted to have recorded. And to keep the camera on either Guruji or Geetaji, whoever was teaching. When Guruji taught in Rishikesh for 2 years in a row to help that province in India, I guess the governor there, I don't know, I think that's what they're called, asked him to come and do workshops and to bring people so that the economy would be raised a bit, encouraged to come up. People, from around the world would come and spend money. And so he did. He held kind of an intensive. And Guruji, right after that, held the pranayama intensives. And if you were invited to the pranayama intensive, you had to go to Rishikesh first. So you had to do both, which was, amazing. Rishikesh was cold. Why bricks for Setubandha are called bricks is because we use bricks, real bricks,
Wow.
like the house with. Yeah, and I had my little camera and he let me video different things. He would tell me, you can video now, and otherwise he would say, now you have to practice, or stuff like that. So he was I really feel very fortunate to have been in his light and in his eyes.
Yeah.
So that was all good. And I was fortunate enough to be one of those selected to attend the women's intensive with Geetaji that Lois Steinberg organized. That was also amazing. So it's been, I think sometimes a lot of us say so-and-so or this event or whatever changed their lives, but being part of and coming into the Iyengar community and family definitely changed my life.
Yeah. So, in reflecting on your time studying with Guruji and Geetaji, can you recall any of the teachings? Of course, there are many, but that really have stuck with you in terms of how it shaped your practice or your spiritual journey?
Well, everything,
Yeah.
everything. But preparing for and being involved in and continuing to stay involved after Yoga 90
Mhm.
and at Yoga 90. At Yoga 90, Guruji did not necessarily teach every day. He had the teachers at all levels teach in separate rooms. They all had little rooms then, and people rotated based on, I forget how we figured out how people rotated. And Guruji would go from room to room, and whatever was being taught, the teachers were told what was to be taught. He would come in and he would listen, and he would make either corrections or additions. He wasn't judgmental. He wasn't angry about anything, but he was, firm. And he gave all the teachers, additional instruction or ways and or thoughts, philosophy also. And so that was interesting to be a part of. I also was one of the teachers that he came into the room and
Mhm.
assisted in teaching. I remember that teaching Bharat Vajasan in the chair with a block in the chest against the chair. It was, yeah. Well, it's a little, I don't know, we had a lot of time together during that time, and he was very happy with the convention. And so he called me in the day before it was going to be the last day, and he goes, instead of the teachers teaching today, he said, I'm going to teach. So you give them this gift.
Okay.
And I just thought to myself, oh God, how am I going to make this happen? Because the big room where everybody met the first day and had a stage, and it wasn't rented for that last day.
Oh.
So amazingly enough, it was available for that morning, but all the equipment, all the props and everything from all the different rooms had to be moved into that room. And nobody knew this was going to happen. So when everybody came the next morning and they were getting ready to go to their little separate rooms, there were the six of us organizers who met people at the door and said, everybody go into the big main hall at the convention. It was at the San Diego Convention Center. The old center, it was before the new convention center was even somebody's idea. And so it was a surprise for everybody that he taught that that class. So that was, he would do things like that. you know. I went to Pune almost every year.
Mhm.
And of course, every year that you go, you learn more, not just about asana, because asana and pranayama, of course, were taught, and philosophy was woven into the teachings, and special days or afternoons lectures on either the sutras or the Bhagavad Gita. It was the time when Geetaji started doing lectures on the Bhagavad Gita and weaving the Yoga Sutras into that. And those are recorded and they are available.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would like to get them all in one, one right after the other in a proper order that she gave them, because it took her those lectures to finish all 18 chapters of the Gita, and weaving in the Yoga Sutras took almost 7 years.
Mhm.
because she didn't do it every day, she didn't do it every month, she did it when she was ready to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those were definitely recorded. Having a regular practice, which as teachers we are expected, and I assume everybody does, understanding that your teaching comes from your practice as well as from what you're learning about practice and about what you're learning, about what you're reading, and the classes that you go to, and hearing from Guruji and Geetaji and today Prashant. And our practice is experiential. It's also a bit experimental in that you're doing what the teacher that you're following is telling you to do, but it's your experience.
Yes.
It's your experience. Geetaji would say also, and Abhijat is doing a lot of that now too, if your experience of whatever's happening doesn't feel right for you in that moment, you have to know what's going to make that same instruction feel, I don't know if I'm using the right words, but feel better, so there is no pain. In this way, you learn, and you learn from your own experience also.
Mm-hmm.
There's a foundation from which you're learning from, and then from that foundation, you have to adjust
Mm-hmm.
uh, for your experience. Okay, and then in addition, paying attention to all that, because Patanjali tells us that yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. It's really about the psychology of our existence. That mind to connect to our inner being, our soul, you want to call it your soul or the self with capital S, or to the divine within, cannot be touched, listened to, seen, however we want to say it, when the mind is in a state of vrittis, a state of fluctuations, of the mind being here, there, thinking about what's coming next, or what we did yesterday, or what are we going to do next week, or it has to be in a state of, you have to be able to silence the mind.
Yeah.
But what happens in that silence is the goal. Your what comes up, and you have to know that it's coming from the soul area, it's not coming from the brain area.
Mm-hmm.
It's an intuitive learning. It's like something strikes you. Sometimes this happens, I'll say for myself, sometimes I have a teaching coming up and I don't know what to teach, and I have nothing more to teach, or whatever comes, you have those, so then I have to quiet myself and just sit, and something comes.
Yeah.
It seems to work. It seems to be, even when there's a subject area, like, teachers ask you to do a workshop on such and such. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so much material that the Iyengars have given us,
Yeah.
that it's sometimes impossible to figure out what to do in an hour and a half or 2 hours, what
Mm-hmm.
needs to be provided. And especially, in a workshop these days, being online, you don't know everybody who's there. Many people are people you've never seen before at all. So you don't know their practice, you don't know anything. So what are you presenting?
Mm-hmm.
But that, I'm finding anyway, that presentation comes from just being quiet.
Yeah.
You have to not get caught up in all those exterior things that the modern world puts before our eyes and ears
Mhm.
that are really a distraction from
Definitely.
what I think most of us have learned over the years is our real purpose for being here.
Mhm.
And I know that for some that's, it's difficult because you have to have a roof over your head, you have to have food on the table, you have to work to make all that happen. And still there's some part of your day that has to be separate from all that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be 3 hours. It can be someone asks Guruji, how much time should any of us spend, normal people spend who aren't teachers or students in their own practice daily. And he said 40 minutes.
Mm.
So if you can carve out 40 minutes in a day, whether it's early in the morning or after work before dinner, or, and do something that brings you inward and to yourself, it makes a big difference. It's like, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does.
I'm sure you've experienced that also.
I have. I have.
Yeah.
And it isn't always easy, that's for sure. When like you said, you're a homeowner, you have to have a career, family life, and all of the things.
And teaching yoga is a career. Guruji said, teaching yoga is the noblest of professions.
Mhm.
So if you think about all the aspects, we listen to Prashant's talks on Saturday, and he
Mhm.
takes us into and beyond the
Mhm.
asana practice.
Absolutely.
And we must not forget that it is through the asana practice that Guruji has brought us into this understanding of what yoga is about.
Mhm.
I can't remember. I think it's in Sutra 117. He talks about the different aspects of the mind and asana, and, what is the bow? What is the target? Target is the soul, asana is the arrow. So it's not that he's never talked about those things. It's not that Guruji hasn't, in his writing and in his teaching, done his best to convey the philosophy behind our practices. And we have many practices, from asana to pranayama, meditation, dharana, concentration, meditation, even, and pratyahara. You have to go through all these things that are actually can be happening at the same time. But there's steps and stages to getting you to that place where it's happening at the same time.
Mhm.
And that's in the sutras also, steps and stages.
So, in your time with Geetaji, I know you have some special stories of your memories with her. Um, but you have told me one about how she felt when Abhijata decided to take up yoga.
Yeah. That was when we were in Europe, actually.
Okay.
And she had just gotten off the phone and she was so excited. And we said, "What's happened? What's happening?" And she goes, Abhijata had just graduated from her master's program in college, and because she was studying at the time to be I can't remember, botanist or biologist, and deciding whether to continue to go back to school or to be more serious about the practices that her aunt and her grandfather have been doing and involved in. And it's not that she hadn't been practicing, because she would do, she told us she would do inversions before exams. They calmed her down, and, the made taking tests, preparation for tests easier. The anxiety of test taking, we've all experienced that.
Yeah.
But she told Geetaji that she made the decision to take up the art, science, and philosophy of teaching seriously for 1 year.
Mm.
And that alone made Geetaji very happy. Because even though she didn't say it at the time, I think in her own heart, she knew that once Abhijata put 100% into this subject, that's where she would be. Mm-hmm. And so she was very excited, and she shared that excitement with us, which was really a joy. Also, it was always, she had the best smile when she smiled. It was just, her whole face lit up, her eyes lit up. Yeah.
And so what were their involvement? You told me about Prashant's involvement in helping Abhijata.
Yeah, from what I knew, it's from observation, so no one's ever said anything. But we could, when I was there for extended period of time, you could see that every day Abhijata sat with Prashant on the first floor of the institute at the desk, he on one side, she on the other, and they were deep in philosophical discussions. We get to be with him, thanks to you, every Saturday, except for a few Saturdays now, for it's going on 3 years, right?
We're coming up on 4 years in June.
Yeah. And we do that for 1 hour once a week.
Yeah.
With a few Saturdays being missed here and there because of holidays and things.
Yeah.
But she did that 365, as far as I could tell, days every year. Mm-hmm. She still does. Mm-hmm. Perhaps not every day, because now she's a mother of two and, wife, as well as, the main teacher and the director of RIMI. Mm-hmm. And these are big responsibilities, and she's also training the teachers there, and it's a big responsibility she has, that they all have there. And the family there, all of them, just Harit just spent, he was here in the United States for business in California and Irvine. And so my colleague and dear friend Christine drove him down from LA, and we spent all day Sunday and Monday, and I drove him back to Irvine where his meetings were. And it was just delightful, having one of Guruji's grandsons, who I've known for years. My son and my daughter-in-law, we all lived together also. And so they were in the house, and Harit and Tori said it's like been 27 years since they've seen each other in person.
Oh, wow.
And they just had a great time in discussion with each other.
Wonderful.
So that was fun. It's just been very special to be a part of that family.
Yeah.
And it's been an honor to serve that family in whatever ways came up for me to do so, and it's almost not like I had to think about, should I do this or not do this, and spend a lot of time, in my head twirling all of that around. I just never did that. It was just, this was what was supposed to happen. And what I learned from that too is that obstacles come in our way. There are all kinds of obstacles. We know that from, from the sutras.
Mhm.
And life's obstacles, come in the way. So you have to decide, am I going to fight that obstacle, or am I going to say, go over there, I can't deal with you, and go on a path that where there are no obstacles. It seems that this is where you should go. It's not about a should, it's where the light takes you, rather than fighting to do something that is continuously fighting against you doing so. And I think people do that and they don't realize that they have another, they're so involved in trying to get through this that they don't realize there's something else that's easier and lighter and more uplifting than having to fight something that is probably not going to be good for you anyway in the long run. So that's been a good part of my philosophy for some time now. It's easy to go do, even if you're planning ahead. You can plan ahead. I've been planning ahead to build an additional dwelling unit in my backyard since I bought this property. My son and I, and my daughter-in-law, over 11 years ago, and it's happening. You just have to do whatever needs to be done from that point until it starts happening, and not make yourself crazy like it has to happen this minute.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So one of the other things that, I worked with Guruji and Geetaji on is after Yoga 90 in LA, we started to have, at that time, what we called teacher training programs. And so I went to Guruji and I said, how should this be done? How do you want this to be done? And to have him, he was all ready. He was ready with, we had the syllabus for the asanas and pranayamas, but he also put together the syllabus for studying the sutras and the Bhagavad Gita and anatomy that would go with other aspects of teaching asanas, not just teaching that pose, but understanding, as we all do now, that poses have modifications for various issues that may come up with our students on different levels: physical, mental, emotional, organic, or wonderful things like pregnancy, and how to work with pregnant ladies, but also how to help those who have long-term, like myself, asthma, and how we practice to keep having those horrible asthma attacks take over. Luckily, I haven't really had one in, I can't remember when. One year, though, I was in Pune and I did have pneumonia and ended up in the hospital there for 3 days. That too was an experience. And I came out of the hospital, and the next day went to the institute and went to class, and Guruji was there, and I, went to let him know, hi, I've been in the hospital. He goes, I know. And so I said, so, and, with pneumonia, and the doctor, Dr. Nayak, is who I went to when I was having this lung pain. And he connected me with a respiratory doctor who had me go in for x-rays and immediately put me in there to be put on whatever medication through IV. I said, how should my practice be because of this incident? And he goes, you just go to class and you come to therapy class. And so that's what I did. And he had me in different asanas. And, like he does for those who have been there watching him in asana class, he would put people in an asana and then he'd go away. And then he'd come back a few minutes later or 10 minutes later and he'd look at the person and he'd make some adjustment. And the person would go, I know this feeling. He made an adjustment, he put in a little prop, and you just go, oh,
yeah,
finally, there's like just everything just went into a state of bliss.
mm-hmm.
And you kind of wonder, what did he see?
Yeah.
And I went to Geetaji and I said to her, what do you see? What are you looking for in therapy? This was very early on. And and Guruji wrote about these things. He wrote about it when he wrote The Tree of Yoga. If you look in there, what to look for. You have to see people's faces. You have to see the color of their skin. You have to see their eyes. It's not just putting someone in an asana and just say, okay, be there 5 minutes and then we'll go to the next asana. They have to be there quiet. The other thing he would tell us is stop talking to don't be in conversation. In a conversation has nothing to do with what is going on in that moment, in that place, in that time. You may see a twitch or something in the face. So you may ask, what's going on? What are you feeling? But it has to be about what is going on right there and then in that asana that you're discussing. So Geetaji, she said all those things and she says just after many, many years of helping and being totally observant, we tell our students also when we teach, observe yourself. You have to observe, is this happening? If not, what can we do so that you get this experience also? Or if I'm giving an instruction, you have this interaction with your students about what do you feel when you are doing this particular action, and they share that with each other, and that's a good thing. But it's that observation is a skill that you have to know from where to observe. Certain poses you observe from the front, others you observe from the side, others you might observe from the back, others you may have to go around and like you do around the temple, you circle, you go around the temple 9 times, you may have to go around a few times and see what's happening. But always to be able to, she would say, to see the person's face. So even when you're adjusting, most of the time, if you watch the different adjustments, you can see that person's face. And she showed us how to adjust. Guruji did also, of course. At one of the conventions, believe it or not, we were in Las Vegas for this convention. This senior teacher there, Aileen, her daughter, was in a bad automobile accident and had broken her thigh bone in like 3 places and her sacrum or somewhere. And, she was maybe 14 and she was studying ballet and, can't do these things. So what to do? So Aileen asked Geetaji for some guidance. And so Geetaji took Aileen, myself, and the daughter, Sophia, to a room. She said, here's what you're going to do. And I'm going to show you the adjustments. And she said, I'm going to adjust Sophia first. And then I'm going to adjust the mother, Aileen, and me.
Mm.
And then she said, and then each of you are to adjust Sophia. And Sophia is to tell you whether or not your adjustment felt exactly like mine, like Geetaji's adjustment on Sophia. And I thought to myself, this is how you teach adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
So, adjustments, a teacher doing the adjustment first has to feel that adjustment on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, their teacher has to do the adjustment, whatever the adjustment may be. My mentor would do that on me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would turn around and do it on the person who did it on me, or on a student where the mentor could observe. So
Mm-hmm.
why not just, some people go, well, oh, you showed me the adjustment, now I can do it on somebody else.
Yeah, no.
That's an absolute no-no in our system, really. And I don't know that everybody knows that, but you have to feel the adjustment before you adjust someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very difficult when you have, a bunch of people, a bunch of teachers. Sometimes you're in a workshop and there's 20, 30 teachers. How are you going to, as the main teacher, adjust 20, 30 teachers who are then supposed to adjust you?
Yeah.
So you do your best.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to observe, you have to watch, and you have to be vigilant about your observation while people are adjusting others when they're in that learning mode. But that's how I learned about the art of learning adjusting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And it was so interesting that even though Sophia was, like I said, I think she was 14, maybe younger, but it was up to her to let her mother and me know that we did it okay.
And how did that go?
It went very well.
Okay.
It's it's also very humbling, to be assessed, so to speak, by a 13-year-old.
Sure.
Because that's what it was. It was like an assessment. I'm adjusting you, and you're letting me know if it's okay or not okay, based on what you received by the teacher, by Geetaji.
Right.
So that was an interesting moment.
I bet.
Yeah. And so, of course, we brought that into our teacher training programs also. And Guruji had said at the time that teacher training should be done for 3 years. And
Mm-hmm.
that people who are in the program should have been doing, um, been in class as a student,
Mm-hmm.
for 3 years also.
Mm-hmm.
So now, before you ever go up for assessment, you're 6 years into your learning. That's
Mm-hmm.
longer than most people are in college.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. And that's how he felt it was. You're going to be a teacher. It's graduate study.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very true. And even that's not long enough, you know? I mean,
No, the whole study is lifelong, lives long,
right.
lives long, not just lifelong, but lives long. Know that I don't know when I came to this. Oh, everything that I need to know about yoga, Iyengar yoga, I'm not going to know all that I need to know in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It may
Yeah.
take lifetimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that conundrum. I guess it's a conundrum, if I'm using the right word. One has to believe in reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
And that birth cycle that
Yeah.
is based on our samskaras and our karmas that stay that stay active even after passing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's all very, very interesting.
well, the whole subject is so fascinating.
It really is.
It's really fascinating. And no matter what your depth of learning is, some people are, they want to know and know every Sanskrit word. I don't know every Sanskrit word. Even in Prashant's books, he'll write it in Sanskrit, but he doesn't tell you what it says.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn the Sanskrit to know some of the things.
Yeah.
But whatever there is that is available for my existence and my learning, it's all available there, and what use you make of it or how in depth you go into it is entirely up to each of us.
Yeah.
And that depth is dependent on a lot of things sometimes we don't have any control over. But I think what's important is not to punish ourselves because we can't do it all,
Yeah.
or be judgmental of ourselves that we're incapable of doing it all.
Yeah.
Because we are. Our whole lives are not, for most of us, are not. You know, you may sleep 6 hours a day, and the other 18 hours, spent in yoga learning. It's not. For most of us, that's not how our lives are.
Right.
Especially now here in the U.S. of A.
Hmm. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of times, the other times of the day when we're not doing our yoga practice, I'm wondering from you, Gloria, if you could share any of your memories from times with Guruji or Geetaji or Prashantji, any of the family members outside of the hall. Maybe it was having a meal or
Sure. Well, when Guruji was here in the US for conventions, we always found a nice home for him to stay in that many of us could also stay in, or at
Mhm.
least come in and out of the house to cook. So I
Mhm.
would cook and, because we're cooking for the guru. Oh my God.
Yes.
And, and it's not just cooking, it's providing sattvic food that is nourishing and done with love and care.
Yes.
And so, that may be from our side. On his side, he would come back from teaching because we'd still be in the kitchen, and he would go, have you have you two been in here all day on your feet? And we would go, yeah, be shopping and making things because Indian food takes time. And he would just go, put everything down, go into the other room and sit in Baddha Konasana and don't come out till I tell you. Baddha Konasana and Virasana,
Mm.
which, when you think about it, when you've been on your feet all day,
Mhm.
and blood is going down all day, you have to do things where the pumping of the blood is coming
Up.
back to your heart, and then inversions. So, yeah. So he took care of everybody at a convention, came back to the house, and took care of those who were in the house also.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is, his. And at one of those dinners, we were trying to come up with, Guruji loved ice cream.
Mm.
He just really loved ice cream. And we decided one of the ladies we were with said, let's make strawberry parfaits.
Ooh.
Love those parfaits. he was great.
Yeah.
It was fun in those ways. He was very serious about his subject, of course.
Yeah.
And in helping people. The yoga helped him. And so he wanted to pass that on to others as well. And to also give back to his birthplace. So you all know we raise money for Belur, which is where he was born. And the donations that people give for Prashant's talks on Saturday also go directly to Belur. And Guruji, when he decided that he had to give back to the place of his birthplace, he realized that there are certain things that have to be done in a certain way. And he actually, one time we were in Belur, and he took me aside and showed me all these different things. One of the is bringing clean water was the first thing, because without clean water, we all have to drink water in some form of another, whether it's soup or coffee or tea or just water. And we all know that germs and whatever flow in water, and water needs to be purified. So he established that first. And then he realized that when people are not well, there needs to be somebody there who can help them get better. And so he put money forth for an ambulance, and the people in the ambulance, EMTs, right? Emergency medical
Technicians.
Yeah. So he established that, and then the school, and elementary school. And part of the elementary school curriculum was that everybody did yoga every day. The kids to this day, they do that. When you go there, if you're there at a certain time, at the right time of the day, they all come together, they chant, and then they do their yoga practice, and then they go, to their studies. Often the kids in the schools with the teachers would do a performance for people who, came, like if they came in a group for a holiday or something, and they would do a yoga performance. They are awesome. Then he established the hospital. So in the same complex or land that now holds the Iyengar Yoga Center, Asana Hall there, which is beautiful. You've been there. So right down, like a block away, is the hospital, and it's free. And doctors come from the teaching hospital in the city every Saturday. So people can go there every Saturday. And if there's an emergency in between, there's the ambulance to take them, or there are other doctors in training and nurses, and they're there to help. So another story. One day we were in Pune, and we were all going to Belur with Geetaji. I don't remember why. So we were at the airport. We were flying from Pune to Bangalore. I got sick to my stomach. I threw up. Never happened to me before. And I said to Geetaji, I think maybe I better stay behind, because I was just, I just vomited. And she goes, "You're getting on the plane. There's a hospital waiting for you." Totally, and that was that. There was no further discussion. And as soon as we got off, she had me in her car, because they got picked up. She put me in her car, and off we went ahead of the others who were in the buses, and put me in the hospital, they said, "You're dehydrated." And I just stayed there overnight, and the next day I was fine. So there's that story.
Did Geetaji do a lot of cooking as well?
In the house, Geetaji cooked, and so do her sisters.
Hmm.
And Sunita, who teaches also, and had her own home. Of course, they all had their own homes, but now they kind of all live in the complex there, I believe.
Hmm.
Since two of the sisters' husbands have passed, Sunita in her home, and they live next door to each other in this other area of Pune. Sunita Parthasarati had a yoga space upstairs. She did yoga therapy as well as teach classes, and he was her helper.
Mm.
So he, which was wonderful to watch. He was such a delightfully happy man,
Hmm.
and his passing was so sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a very close family.
Yeah. Very traditional as well, right?
Yeah, all the holidays are celebrated. You can tell that because, certain holidays, classes are canceled, but celebrations are had. They share the celebrations. And sometimes when I was traveling with Geetaji, we would sit and talk about the different celebrations and compare them to the Jewish holidays also. My
Mm.
background is I was raised in a Jewish household, and she was always very interested. It's
What
beautiful.
about the story you told me once about you took Guruji to?
Oh,
Yeah.
so a very important story, actually. Guruji was 90,
Hmm.
going on 90. And in India, there are these holy places.
Hmm.
And the it's important that you have visited each of these holy places before you pass this lifetime.
Hmm.
One of those places is the home of Lord Jagannath in Puri, which is in Orissa on the Bay of Bengal. And so Christine and I, when we learned that he had never been there, and Christine had been there I had even been there. We'd been there. We decided that we had to do something so that for his 90th birthday, he and anyone in the family who wanted to could would go there and be with Lord Jagannath before the chariot. And I don't know if you know about the Rath Yatra in Puri, but these huge chariots are created every year, and
Hmm.
every year they're broken down, and the wood, they're all made out of wood, and the wood that is used to make the chariots, and they're huge chariots, they're like 20 feet tall or more.
Wow.
And the deities, the three deities in the temple, Jagannath, his brother Balaji, and his sister Subhadra, are all carried out of the temple and put on the chariots and taken across town. So this is the parade of the chariots, and everyone then gets to see the deities, because unless you're Indian, you're not allowed inside the temple. We managed to find a way to pull all the money together to rent a big house so the family could be in the house and have food there. Our friend, who was actually his father at the time, was the head of the temple priest, and he loved Guruji, and he had been to Pune several times, Raja. So he arranged for food. But as I said, the wood from the chariots is recycled as the wood that cooks the food at the temple for thousands of people every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. And actually, I'm heading back there this July. So we did. We got, and Harit too, when he was here this last weekend, not this weekend, but last weekend. We talked about that time because it was very special. Harit was there. Abhi was there, Sharon was there, Sunita, Guruji, of course, and the police. Because Roger was concerned that, that Guruji is protected at all times. So
Oh.
Guruji just didn't want the police going with him to the temple. He didn't think he didn't want that. Because you have to enter the temple. I don't know what goes on in there. I'm not permitted. But when the deities are outside of the temple on the chariots, they never make it all the way across town. It's the whole thing is an annual soap opera.
Okay.
So because Jagannath and his brother and sister are, they're supposed to be very close to people in the village. They don't separate themselves. So they have similar things happening to them, right? So they're going to visit their mother, I thought, but someone told me it was their aunt who lives in the temple across, but they never make it in one day. So halfway there, they stop, and here these deities on these huge, beautiful painted chariots are there. And there are 2 million people in the streets pulling the chariots, taking turns, because they're not motorized. The axles, these huge ropes like this in diameter, are wrapped around the axle, and people pull. And the chariots on these wheels that are more than 6 feet in diameter, go the length of the rope, and then it's retied, and then it gets pulled again. And it's considered totally auspicious if you are able to be one of the people to pull on the rope. But if not, and you're up in the middle of the night and you want to see the deities up close, which we would do, we would go there. You could do that, and that was fine to do. But we would watch. So when we took Guruji, Raja made arrangements that all of us would be above the street. So we were like 2 floors above the street, so we could see everything. We could see the deities being brought out of the temple, put on the chariots, and off they go. But once you're up there, you're there all day. So he arranged that there was also a bathroom up there that he created, and a place where if Guruji wanted to practice, it was quiet, during the day sometime. And food was provided. I mean, everything was provided for us by Raja and the temple priests. So that was very exciting to be a part of that. Yeah, it's very special. Yeah.
Very special for him as well.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of things that I can tell your audience about.
Yes.
Well, just every year, for our training programs, every year I would go back and I would tell Guruji what happened, what got done, what we did, and he would always adjust or make suggestions for next time. He was always very interested in the education that the future teachers were getting.
Well, that's important because we are supposed to be teaching a method that's in his name.
That's right. That's right. And it's, I don't know how other people feel about this, but if you take on the teaching of the art, science, and philosophy of yoga according to Guruji's teaching, that's you have to take it on as a heartfelt, serious
Mm-hmm.
profession
Yeah.
and treat it that way, you know, both from the mundane standpoint of paying your dues and your certification mark fees, and use that certification mark. It's an indication of that you have that the individual who is using that mark, who shows that mark on your websites or whatever, you know, technologies one uses, that that you teach Iyengar yoga and you're proud of it.
Yeah.
Some people have t-shirts made. You can use the logo on your t-shirt. The temple with the figure in Natarajasana is for the certified teachers. And
Mhm.
certified teachers, they work hard, as I said, 3 years as a student, 3 years learning to take your assessment.
And
It,
then the learning is ongoing beyond that. I mean, we're
absolutely. And it's the road less traveled. And Guruji gave us levels at that time, many more levels than we have now, to help us learn.
Mhm.
So in our assessment manuals, even today, the old syllabi, calling the previous syllabi,
Mhm.
are in the back of the assessment manual. You
Mhm.
use them because they help you to learn.
Mhm.
So level one, introductory one, you learn those poses. And then introductory two, you learn those poses. And what have you learned from introductory one that's going to help you learn the introductory two poses, and so on? Junior intermediate one, two, three. And it goes on, and I'm sure he spent a good deal of time figuring
Yeah.
figuring this figuring all this stuff out, uh, leaving enough freedom and room in from one syllabus to the other to help you learn from the various asanas to learn other asanas. The linking part of learning asanas, what you
Mhm.
learn from one to learn another, and even from a higher asana or a higher level asana, maybe in a different level syllabus, what you learn there that is going to help you relearn or get more in depth or a deeper understanding of a more fundamental asana.
Mhm.
Like, how many times have you done trikonasana, and every time you've done it, you've learned something else?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's different every time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
different ways of doing, different modifications for different issues.
Mhm.
I myself had torn meniscus. I've had that in both knees. And one doctor said, "Oh, you're going to probably have to have surgery one day." And I picked myself up and went to Pune. I said to Guruji, "This is what they said. This is what," and immediately he grabbed one of the senior teachers at the time from Australia and had her working with me in therapy class every day. And I
Mhm.
took classes every day, but I had to remember what I did in therapy in those
Mhm.
courses of regular classes with Gita or Prashant. And yeah, and I remember one day going to a class with Prashant, and wasn't I wasn't feeling well. I felt maybe that's like, one of those asthma things that I was having a little trouble breathing. And I was supposed to be in class, and but I had my jeans on. I didn't think I was going to be able to take class. And I told him what was going on, and he said, "Well, just go to class and do what you're supposed to do for your asthma, and I'll watch you.
Mm.
I'll be there." I said, "But I'm in jeans." He goes, "So?" It's not about the clothes. It was great. It was great. And I did, he watched the whole time. And, I knew that if I was doing something wrong, he would say something. So I was happy but I knew he was watching. Yeah.
Yeah.
the the yoga industry makes billions of dollars due to clothes. Just
Yes.
think about props. So that was just something that struck me as very funny.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to us teachers and the future generations to come to preserve Guruji's legacy?
One, practice every aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yamas, niyamas have to be practiced. They're not just to be thought about, oh, yes, I'm a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
No, we
Mm-hmm.
all have negative thoughts. We all have things that we shouldn't do, and we do. And we need to recognize those things and stop doing them and catch ourselves every time. You know, yamas and niyamas need to be practiced.
Yeah.
They're not just to read about, they need to be practiced. And I think, the teachers and the mentors and their students need to talk about how they go about doing that, what they're doing about
Mm-hmm.
that. I think it's one of the things that is ignored, actually. And of course, you have to practice all of the limbs of yoga,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you have to read.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to read. Guruji, Geetaji, Prashant, they are and have been prolific writers.
Yeah.
And the earliest books that Guruji wrote, The Tree of Yoga, there's so much in that little book.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I do, like at the beginning of every year, is I read the introduction to each of those books every January,
Mm-hmm.
because our practices and our learning from year to year give us a different perspective on what he's writing. It gives us a deeper understanding of what they're writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps us in our teaching and in our lives, how
Yes.
we treat each other, how we treat people we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you say hello to everyone that you pass on the street? You should. I mean, be kind.
Mm-hmm.
In many places, it's a cliche, I guess, in some places like New York City, that all these people live in the same building and they don't even know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they share the same housing place,
Yeah.
and that I think that's true. I know many of my neighbors, but I don't know many of my neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
We talk to each other on the streets. We may not go into each other's homes.
Yeah.
You know, it's whereas when I was a little girl, we were in everybody's homes,
Yeah.
running in and out of everybody's home, sharing meals in everybody's homes. And it was just different. It was different. Okay, so practice reading, going to Pune.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers should go to Pune
Mm-hmm.
and, put away a little bit of money from wherever you can and save it so that, once every 2 or 3 years, you go to Pune. You go to study at the institute there.
That's
They
really good.
say people used to say, "How do you go to Pune every year?" Well, part of it is, as I save, I'm a saver, and I used to say, and that's what credit cards are for.
Very
So
true.
part is savings and part is credit cards.
Mm-hmm. And in any case, just go. Just get
In
there.
any case, just go. If you should be fortunate enough to be able to spend more than a month there, do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's someone like Stephanie Quirk who spent 22 years there.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It is.
And others who are able to spend, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
any lengthy time there. It's just very fortunate that they were able to do that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
To be able to say that you lived, let alone were taught by these amazing teachers in the Iyengar family,
Mm-hmm.
that alone, you are blessed.
Yes,
We are blessed.
we are.
So here's a commercial. Go to the convention.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I know that it's, for Abhijata, to be able to travel to the United States and bring her family, it's a big deal. And, if she had to go back again and then come back to the Americas to teach in Mexico, so being able to do that one right after the other. And, but yeah, Mexico's cheap, but you don't, we in the United States live here. This is our community also.
Yes.
And we need to support our community as well.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that wasn't too brash.
Was. I think it's good. It's for the listeners, our convention is in May,
Yeah,
Memorial Day weekend in Philadelphia, and the theme is cultivating freedom, if you don't know.
correct. Register online. People have been working really hard and doing wonderful things to prepare for this convention.
That's right. Yeah. And to all be together, it's a really special experience.
It's also the 250th anniversary birth of the United States, or the Declaration of Independence,
Mm-hmm.
at this time. And so, it's kind of an important time.
Yes. Well, Gloria, thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome. I hope
Well,
it's been of interest to anybody and everybody.
oh, it absolutely will be. Yeah. Yes.
And
Yes.
thank you. Thank you for doing these podcasts so that people learn about our system of yoga and our teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of On the Light. I loved all of the advice Gloria gave us practitioners, and I particularly liked how she suggested that we go back and reread all of the introductions to the books once a year. This, of course, prompted me to pick up The Tree of Yoga and see what Guruji wrote in the foreword of that book. I will read it for you today. Friends and fellow seekers. In the spiritual world, as in the physical world, one can climb a mountain from various directions. One way may be long, another short, one winding and difficult, another straightforward and easy. Yet by all these paths it is possible to reach the summit. In the search for spiritual knowledge, there are many methods, many avenues, many ways to experience the hidden core of our being and direct the mind, which is caught up in the web of the pleasures of the world, towards the very source of its existence, the Atma, or soul. My subject is yoga, the path which cultures the body and senses, refines the mind, civilizes the intelligence, and takes rest in the soul, which is the core of our being. It is unfortunate that many people who have not penetrated the depth of yoga think of this spiritual path to the self-realization as being merely a physical discipline, and the practice of hatha yoga as nothing but a kind of gymnastics. But yoga is more than physical. It is cellular, mental, intellectual, and spiritual. It involves man in his entire being. For the past 35 years, I have been coming regularly to Europe and America, giving classes and demonstrations to bring the science of yoga to the people of the West. I regularly give lectures and meet students of yoga who wish to ask me questions and deepen their understanding of the subject. A number of my recent talks and question and answer sessions have now been brought together and rearranged in book form. And this book, which you have in your hands, can serve as a practical and philosophical companion to my earlier books, Light on Yoga, Light on Pranayama, and the Art of Yoga. As you read it, you will discover something of the wealth and profundity of yoga, which takes us from the surface of the skin to the depth of the soul. I hope that this volume will be fruitful, both for experienced practitioners of yoga and for those who are approaching the subject for the first time. It is my wish to share the joy of life through yoga with you all, so I am very glad to speak to you through this book. Yoga means coming together, and yoga is bringing you and me together through these pages. Think of the state of mind you were in before you began reading. It was a fresh mind with no ideas. You came with a fresh mind to look at this book. If we can maintain that state in our daily lives, that is known as integration. To be fully integrated means to integrate oneself totally from the body to the self, and also to live in integration with one's neighbors and surroundings. Integration is meditation, and meditation is integration. Those who have no integration cannot speak of meditation, nor can those who have no experience of meditation say what integration is. The two are interconnected and interrelated. If you and I are integrated, the mind is silent in you and the mind is silent in me, yet we are alert and fully aware. If awareness is broken from time to time, that is known as distraction. And to bring the distracted mind again and again to a focal point is concentration. But if this alert state of silence, which normally comes to us only in glimpses, continues for a very long time, that is meditation. When this uninterrupted awareness of integration of body, mind, and soul is retained, then time does not know past and future. Time is eternal. And as eternity is here in time, you and I become eternal. That is integration. And in that state, no differences can come between us. I hope that if not today, then one day, we may reach this point of culmination. Remember that in self-realization, there is culmination. Probably you have heard something different, that the infinite cannot be seen or reached by the finite. But we have only finite means to know the infinite. When the finite merges in the infinite, everything becomes infinite. Consider the sky. The sky is finite as well as infinite. None can touch it, yet we are in contact with it at every moment of our lives. Similarly, you and I have to use finite means, body, mind, intelligence, and consciousness to reach the infinite seat of the soul, which is the mother of all these things. In this way, we remain ever fresh, ever peaceful, and with ever-growing intelligence. God bless you all. BKS Iyengar. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to like, share, or subscribe. And if you're able, a small monthly contribution helps maintain the continued production of this podcast. Thank you for listening. Namaskar.